The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Michael didn't move. He just stared at it, face down, the screen lighting up the granite countertop like a heartbeat. "Charlotte," he said, his voice tight, barely above a whisper. "Whose name is that?" She froze at the sink, the tap water still running over a coffee mug. Her hands started shaking, the ceramic slipping against her fingers. She didn't turn around. "It's nobody," she said, her voice strained. "Just a guy from my study group." Michael picked up the phone. He flipped it over. "Josh. Hey, you still up? Miss talking to you." His jaw clamped shut. His hands, the same hands heavily calloused from working nights at the shipping warehouse to help pay for her textbooks, were trembling now too. "A year, Charlotte," he said, the betrayal dripping from every word. "Okay." She reached out and jerked the faucet off. The apartment went dead silent, just the low hum of the refrigerator, and her heartbeat deafening in her own ears. "Mrs. Stark here, and today I want to tell you a story about trust, about what happens when it slips away, quietly, one text message at a time, and about what it really takes, the brutal, uncomfortable reality of what it takes to ever earn it back. So, this one's close to home for a lot of you, so let's start from the beginning."
Charlotte was 20, a sophomore at the University of Denver, studying communications. She was the kind of girl who remembered everyone's name in lecture, always had her hair tied up in a messy clip, and was perpetually running 5 minutes late but smiling through it. Michael was 22, a year ahead of her, grinding through his nursing degree. He worked graveyard shifts at a UPS distribution center off Peoria Street to cover rent because his parents back in Colorado Springs were strapped for cash and couldn't help with his tuition. They met at a Trader Joe's, of all places, during freshman year. Charlotte was reaching for the last bag of dark chocolate peanut butter cups, and Michael grabbed the exact same bag. He said, "You can have it," holding his hands up. No, you touched it first," she argued. They ended up splitting it right there in the parking lot, sitting on the dented hood of his old Honda Civic. That was it. That was the spark. For the first 8 months, things were incredible. Michael was the kind of guy who actually paid attention. He remembered Charlotte hated cilantro on her Chipotle order. He remembered her dad's weird sense of humor. He would drive 40 minutes in traffic after a brutal double shift just to bring her a Jamba Juice because she'd bombed a midterm. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't taking her on expensive vacations, but he showed up every single time. Somewhere around month 9, a crack formed. Charlotte couldn't even really pinpoint when it happened. Maybe it was the group project in her media studies class. That's where she met Josh. Josh was 21, easy to talk to, loud, and funny in that quick, sarcastic way that draws people in. And unlike Michael, Josh had unlimited free time. He wasn't destroying his back working nights. He wasn't stressed about tuition or exhausted from 12-hour clinicals. He could just hang out for hours. At first, it really was just texting about their presentation. Then it wasn't. Charlotte started hyper-fixating on things about Michael that had never bothered her before. The way he'd crash on the couch after work, still wearing his dusty UPS boots. The way he was sometimes just too physically drained to hold a deep conversation. She started comparing them, and comparing is a toxic game to play in a relationship because it strips away all context from the person standing right in front of you. She didn't communicate any of this to Michael, not a single word. Instead, she pulled away. Her phone became super glued to her hand. She started taking it into the shower with her. She kept it face down under her pillow at night. She began actively deleting message threads before walking into their apartment. Michael noticed. You always notice. But he was terrified of being the toxic, jealous boyfriend, so he swallowed his gut feeling and stayed quiet. For months. Here is the brutal reality of what Charlotte was entirely blind to, completely wrapped up in her own ego. Michael had picked up 3 extra graveyard shifts a week that semester, not to buy himself anything, but to quietly cover a gap in her financial aid. He never brought it up. He just transferred her $300 on Venmo in late October with the caption, "Don't stress about the bursar's office, just focus on midterms." He skipped his own family's Thanksgiving dinner down in Colorado Springs to stay in Denver with her because her parents were going through a vicious divorce, and she had cried about being left alone in her dorm for the holidays. He bled himself dry for her, quietly, without ever asking for a trophy, and the entire time, she was texting another guy. This isn't a story of cartoon villains. Charlotte didn't start entertaining Josh because she was inherently evil. She did it because she felt bored and craved validation, and instead of doing the hard work of communicating with her partner, she took the cheap, easy way out. That is not an excuse. It's just the ugly truth. It was a normal Tuesday night. Michael had miraculously gotten off work early and picked up pad thai from her favorite spot on Colfax Avenue to surprise her. He walked into the kitchen as she was washing a mug. Her phone was sitting on the island, plugged into the charger. It vibrated loudly against the stone. "Hey, you still up? Miss talking to you." Michael's stomach plummeted to the floor. He didn't mean to snoop, but the screen was glowing right in his face. His thumb swiped up, unlocking the preview screen just a little. "I get why you can't leave yet, but I'm here whenever you're ready." "Charlotte, I know, it's just hard. He does pay for a lot of my stuff." "You deserve someone who's actually fun to be around, not just a wallet." Michael felt the blood drain completely from his face. By the time Charlotte turned around, his hands were violently shaking. That brings us right back to the cold open. "It's nobody," she lied, her voice trembling. "Just a guy from my study group." Michael dropped the phone onto the counter. It hit the granite with a loud, sickening crack. "A year, Charlotte," he breathed, his voice cracking, the anger finally bleeding through. "A whole year I gave you." She broke down. Not a pretty, cinematic cry, but ugly, gasping sobs. "I'm so sorry," she choked out. I felt like we were roommates. We never talked anymore." Michael stared at her, exhausted, disgusted, and completely broken. "Then you should have broken up with me," he whispered coldly, "instead of using me." He grabbed his car keys off the counter and walked out the front door. Here is where a fake, scripted story would have them hug it out and go to counseling the next morning. Real life doesn't work like that. Michael didn't come back that night, or the next night. He moved his stuff out over the weekend while she was in class, leaving nothing but his half of the rent on the counter. Charlotte was devastated. Desperate for any kind of comfort, she did what people in her position usually do. She texted Josh. She told him she and Michael had officially broken up. She told him she was finally free. Do you know what Josh said? Josh said, "Oh, wow, that's heavy. To be honest, I'm actually talking to this girl from my frat right now, but we can totally still be friends." Boom. The fantasy shattered instantly. Josh didn't actually want a relationship with Charlotte. He just wanted the ego boost of stealing another guy's girlfriend. The second she became single, crying, and complicated, he bolted. Charlotte was left completely alone in an empty apartment. That was her karma. She traded a man who bled for her for a boy who ghosted her in a week. For 3 straight months, Michael refused to speak to her. Charlotte had to sit in the mess she created. She had to get a part-time job at a coffee shop to cover the expenses Michael used to help with. She had to feel the actual crushing weight of the exhaustion Michael had carried for her.
She didn't give up. Charlotte started going to a campus therapist by herself. She wrote Michael a letter. No excuses, no blaming her parents' divorce, just pure accountability. She dropped it in his mailbox and didn't demand a response. Slowly, months later, they bumped into each other on campus. They grabbed a coffee. It was incredibly awkward at first. The trust was entirely shattered. But Charlotte put in the work. When she was stressed, she communicated it verbally instead of seeking outside validation. When Michael was exhausted, she brought him dinner. She proved, through brutal consistency over the next 6 months, that the girl who took him for granted was gone. Almost a full year after that horrible Tuesday night, Michael knocked on her apartment door. He was holding 2 takeout bags from that same Thai restaurant on Colfax Avenue. "Why this?" Charlotte asked, her eyes watering. "Because I don't want this food to remind me of the worst night of my life anymore," Michael said softly. "I want it to remind me of the day we actually started over, for real this time." She didn't just hold his hand, she broke down, wrapping her arms around his neck, finally realizing the absolute treasure she had almost thrown away permanently. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, it was a messy, painful, hard-earned second chance. That's the story of Michael and Charlotte, proof that while karma never misses, true accountability can sometimes salvage what's left behind. So tell me, if you were in Michael's shoes, would you have given Charlotte a second chance after she did the work? Or is betrayal like that an absolute deal breaker for you, no matter what? Let me know in the comments.